Good evening. Fall River Community Media, FRC Media, along with our online community news resource, FRC Media News, are pleased to sponsor tonight's forum featuring the candidates running for Fall River School Committee. My name is Keith Tebow, Director of FRC Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator for tonight's event. All candidates were invited to participate, and all of them are joining us tonight. They are in alphabetical order: Kevin Aguiar, Amy Blanchette, Paul Coogan, Mark Costa, David Cowan, Susan Gankarski-Dunce, Joshua Hetzler, Kristen Govin, Thomas Corey, Joseph Martins, and Crystal Stone. Thank you all for coming, and I know I mismatched. I apologize for that. Kristen, then Joshua. Also joining us tonight is a panel of journalists who will be asking questions of the candidates. They are Donna Mata, Community Editor-in-Chief of FRC Media News, Brian Fraga, reporter for the Herald News, and Pam Martin of Fall River Government Television. Thank you for joining us tonight. The format for tonight's forum is as follows. Our debate will last 90 minutes. There will be no opening statements, but each candidate will be allowed a 90-second closing statement. Each candidate will answer every question presented by our panelists and will have 90 seconds to answer each question. There will be no rebuttals. Prior to each question, we will randomly draw a candidate's name, and that candidate will respond to the question first. We will then work our way around so all candidates answer each question. Candidates will only be asked to answer a question first once. In the event that all candidates are not selected to answer a question first, we will then do another drawing where the person selected will be delivering his or her closing statements first. So we're ready to begin. Our first question will come from Donna Mata from FRC Media News, and it will be directed first to Thomas Corey. Donna.
It's no secret that teacher retention is a problem here in Fall River as well as other urban communities. How do you think we can get teachers to stay in the community and not only stay here and teach and have their careers here, but also reside in Fall River?
Teacher retention is a crucial issue. It's been affecting our schools for a number of years, especially at the elementary level. Those classrooms have high numbers like 28, 29, 30 kids. It's apportionment and it's budget apportionment. It's looking to trim money where money can be trimmed in order to bulk up the classroom. And I'm totally in favor of more paraprofessionals being in the classroom to aid the teacher in oversized classrooms to ease the burden of the classroom teacher. Paraprofessionals play a crucial role in that way that they help. They develop connections with the students. They build a close bond with the teacher, and they're the right arm of the teacher. I see that as one of the ways of maybe helping to ease that burden.
Thank you. Mr. Martins.
Teacher retention is indeed a problem here. One of the reasons is because of the fact that in the past, the teachers were feeling that there's so much responsibility put on top of me, that when I have a problem, it's not understood by the administration. Now that we have a new superintendent, I think the teacher retention will improve, and that we will be able to retain these teachers, because this rotating door of teachers coming and going doesn't help our students at all. So we need to keep the students, the teachers that we have. It's just amazing that, yes, one retention issue is pay. There's only so much money that the city of Fall River can pay. Now you look, once you set aside the pay issue, then you have the classroom assistants. If a teacher has several unruly students, but yet no assistance in correcting that behavior, then the student comes back into the classroom saying, see, nothing was done to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stone?
Hey, thank you for the question. So in terms of teacher retention and how we get our teachers to stay here and live here, I think of my experiences, and for folks who know me, they know that I am a huge proponent of ambassador programs and things like that. I think they're so important. Some of the best professional development that I've had has involved me working with my peers and having time to talk to them and really just collaborate with them as far as what works and what doesn't. So I think that we need to make sure that there's time for our teachers to set aside in their days so that they can talk amongst each other about the challenges that they face. I think that this is another point where parent involvement becomes so critical. So we need open dialogue between family members and teachers so that they can have honest conversations about the struggles as far as what's going on in the classroom, what struggles our children are facing at home that may make learning difficult for either side. And in terms of how do we keep our teachers here, I think we keep them here the same way we keep our other residents here, right? So we show them that this is a great place to live and to work, and I think that happens, through, again, experiences where senior teachers can bring, newer teachers out to different communities and participate in different events and things of that nature.
Thank you. Mr. Aguiar?
So teacher retention is a major issue here in Fall River, and having the experience that I have working in schools, you get to see the reasons why teachers might leave the district. We have so many teachers that are so dedicated. They spend hours and hours and hours of time working hard, preparing their lessons, doing the work after hours. And to come to work sometimes and not get treated with the respect that they deserve is part of the problem. And as one of the other candidates mentioned, I think it has gotten a little better, but we still need to work at it. It's not all about making money. Many, many, many teachers work because it's a vocation. It's because they believe in what they're doing. But if they're going to get into a school and be treated with disrespect or being asked to do the impossible, and a lot of times that's what's being asked of people, is to do more and more with less and less. So we have to treat people with respect, and when you do that, they would actually stay in the district. Way too many, not only teachers, administrators, teachers, people that work in an urban setting like Fall River need to stay here when they're quality employees. But for far too long, we've been getting people to leave the district because they just can't handle the stress of the job and the lack of respect that they get from the administration and a lot of times from the public as well. We need to support our educators. We need to support our people that are there each and every day for our kids, and I intend to do just that if elected again. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Blanchette?
I think Kevin actually hit on a good point. First and foremost, teachers do need to feel respected, not just by the students, but also the parents and the administration. They also need to be compensated at a better rate, especially paraprofessionals. I feel for all that they do, they're not up to par with a lot of the other districts, and because of that, we're losing a lot of our teachers to other districts. I understand this being a budgetary matter. It's something that I'm very interested in working on and trying to improve, because teacher retention rate is critical to all these students, especially on the elementary level, because a lot of these students, they don't like change. You have a teacher for a couple of months and then you have a new teacher, or you have a different substitute teacher every day until that teacher can be rehired. So it's very important to me, I'm sorry, repeating myself, that the teacher turnover rate is taken care of. Also administration, I've seen a lot of principals changing hands as well, so on different levels, but I feel that overall the retention rate is important.
Thank you. Mr. Coogan?
It's no secret in Fall River we had one of the worst retention rates in the state. Just look at the ESE data. People were leaving in droves. And it was a myriad of issues. It was a money issue, it was a climate issue, it was a respect issue. I believe we have started to change the attitude in the district, the way we treat teachers. A number of factors went into that. We had non-renewal letters that went out wholesale to an entire union. I mean, I was in that position for 25 years. I was still getting non-renewal letters because that's the way it was done. We had a vote. I was the only one that voted not to send them out. I lost that vote 6-1, but I'm happy to say the next year we didn't send any letters. Evaluation. We were told not to give teachers exemplary or proficient. We wanted them in the needs improvement attitude if they were new teachers. So a lot of these teachers felt that they were being slighted, and they would go look for a job somewhere else. The only way you're going to fix it is with a collaborative effort from the committee, the administration, and the teachers. I would look to build some programs of the futures to keep teachers in place, whether it's a master's program like I used to take into Trade Winds when I was first teaching, and build a collegial attitude in the schools so the teachers know they're supported and we're giving them something back. If they stay so many years, they don't have to reimburse us for the cost. If they leave, let's recoup some of our money for those classes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Costa.
Thank you. Great question, and something that I, along with colleagues on the school committee, have looked specifically at. Last year, we launched a labor management collaboration specifically to target retention rates at the high school. We had conducted a survey of all staff at the high school. Surprisingly, though, we didn't find that it was money that was driving people out of here, unless you were maybe in your first couple of years in school. The teacher salary scale was off by about $5,000 for surrounding communities. What we found is new teachers were more apt to look at other communities because that $5,000 may equate to childcare, for instance, for them. What we found with more veteran or seasoned teachers was that stuff is as simple as meaningful professional development, and having input into the professional development they were asked to participate in went a long way. Changing the climate and the culture, particularly at the high school with the new administration at the time, Maria Ponce was coming in, we found that she was more inclusive. And so inviting teachers into the process, having communication with them about what they were seeing, what their needs were, and not just listening to what they were, but acting on them. Teacher cabinets were created. Teachers had more of an input in what was going on in the school, and hopefully that'll show some dividends long term. You know, it's frustrating to me as a member of this committee to see the number of staff that come here, get trained here. We offer an awful lot of professional development that's very costly, and to have those teachers leave our district to teach elsewhere is disappointing, disheartening. So I think the approach is to continue to listen to our teachers, treat them with respect, and look to find out what it is that affects their climate in the classroom.
Thank you. Mr. Cowan.
Yes. A lot of teachers were scared they were going to lose their jobs because of the letters, because I went and talked to a lot of the teachers. And they were saying when they have a problem student in the class, they'd notify the parents, and the parents would say, oh, that's your job. But a lot of these teachers, they're going out of their way. They're supplying the stuff. I remember my daughter, she's in the GATE program, and she's like a mentor. When I went to school, we had, I was in the Trade Winds, and Mr. Ford, he'd called me up. We started a program when I had the restaurant, and I was on the advisory board, and we brought in students that had trouble. Instead of quitting, they came and worked. He went out of his way at the time. I don't know if any of you remember Red Jersey Ford, but he would go out of his way. If there was a kid that was going to quit school or something, he'd say, hey, David, come in, take them. A lot of these students and everything, and you have these teachers out there that should be mentors to the other teachers. But a lot of these teachers, they're all scared they're going to lose their jobs. Someone hollers, the parents come in, and then the principal starts talking with the teacher like it's her fault. A lot of the parents, it has to come at home. If you act up, the parent has to come in and work with the administration or someone. Why, it's always left on the poor teacher that's going out of her way. She might have 24 kids in a class. If 1, 2 kids, students act up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Ms. Gankarski-Duntz.
Thank you. As a former teacher in Fall River, I find that I run into a lot of teachers that are friends, and I ask them how they're doing. And so many are saying, I'm doing great. I'm no longer in Fall River. And my first question is always, why not? And they say, the administration is so much better in the school I'm at, or in the city I'm at, or the town. I totally agree with that for the fact that so many of the schools, it doesn't matter if the school is run down, if you have the best of supplies or everything is there that you need. If you have the support of the administration so that if something is happening in your classroom, if you have a frustration, if you need help with a student, if something needs to be done beyond the classroom with some kind of counseling or whatnot, if people need to be brought in. If you know you can go to the office and get help and get assistance, that makes your day so much easier because you know that you can go back to your classroom, teach the rest of the students, and then have ease, knowing that things are being taken care of. If it's put back on your lap because it's a new administrator, they don't know what they're doing, they're new to the system, all it is creating more work, more paperwork.
Thank you. Ms. Garvin.
This is definitely one of the biggest problems that we face. It's certainly understandable that teachers are leaving our system for whether it's better pay or less problems in the school. And we're a city, and that comes with city problems. I think we need to concentrate on the climate of our schools, and I agree with Mr. Aguirre and the lack of respect for our employees. I've worked at my job for 11 years, and I would probably never leave because of the way I'm treated. With that being said, I think we need to look into a commitment from our teachers, whether it's a 3-year or a 5-year, asking them to stay for that. We're training them in programs such as Project Lead the Way and the Administrative Apprenticeship Program, and then they're taking that training to a suburban district, and they're getting hired anywhere else. I do think that this commitment is very important to our retention rate, and I think that possibly asking them to pay that back, like Mr. Coogan said, is an option. The instability is certainly causing a problem for our students as well as our staff.
Thank you. Mr. Hetzler.
I believe teacher retention is a serious problem in Fall River, and I do believe the culture is getting a little bit better, but I believe it's very important that we create a culture where the teachers want to stay. My wife was at Durfee, and she left Durfee to go on to Diamond, and one of the reasons was she felt there wasn't enough supports in place, and I believe that's one of the things that teachers leave the city because of. I believe they have a lack of supports, and I believe they need to have much more help in the classroom. Sometimes I feel they're being overburdened with a number of the students that may be problematic and takes away time from the other students. So there's got to be ways for us to help the teachers out more, whether it's through professional development, whether it's just having additional people in the classroom, paraprofessionals, whatnot. Thank you.
Thank you. Time for our second question will be asked by Brian Fraga of the Herald News, and it will go to answer first, Crystal Stone. Brian?
Thank you. So, about the new Durfee High School, there's been some articles about it, and with some of the early social media chatter that we've seen on the Herald News Facebook page, there's some skepticism in the community among taxpayers whether a new Durfee is needed. And some are saying, well, can't we just renovate the current high school now? So I want to know, do you support a new Durfee High School? If so, like, how do you sell that to the city's parents and residents and taxpayers especially?
Yeah, that's a great question, and certainly, a huge point of discussion right now. So to answer your question, yes, I am in full support of a new Durfee High School. Now, as far as how we get, taxpayers and our community members to buy into a new high school versus revamping the high school, well, a couple school committee meetings ago, they had the folks that are in charge, the architects, come in, and I learned a great deal then. One of the things I learned is it's far more expensive, actually, to renovate Durfee with everything that's going on with the roof and just a host of other issues with the school. So it's far cheaper, actually, to build a new Durfee than it is to renovate the one we have. We talk about, Durfee and needing a new Durfee and needing a building where our students can collaborate and our teachers have spaces to collaborate and up-to-date equipment so that our students can compete with the 21st century. For our average Joe or a regular citizen, I would say what that means is we need spaces where our kids can learn and do well as adults, right? So we always have to remember that these kids are the next generation, right? So these are the kids who are, our next doctors or next lawyers. These are the kids that are, going on to college. And without those tools, without those, cutting edge supplies and things like that, then they don't have the leg up that kids from other districts have. So I think that's how I'd approach that.
Thank you. Mr. Aguiar.
So the new Durfee, the question is, do we need a new Durfee? Yes, we do, absolutely. The real issue, though, is how is it going to be paid for? And that's a larger issue in the grand scheme of things in the city of Fall River. So in Fall River, we have a budget, and it's a limited budget. As you know, and we're hearing from question after question, we have limited funds for police. We have limited funds for fire. We've all gotten asked the question, how are we going to create the right budget for the schools as well as for the city? And it's a balancing act. It's a very, very tight balancing act. I think we need to have the administration come down and explain how they're going to fund this program. Because if we have a new Durfee and they're talking $240 million, that's a very large bond that we have to pay. And that bond money that's going to come out, there's a dollar set to it. If you look at the reports, it's about this thick of exactly what was happening with the Durfee. The basically $80 million we would have to bond over 30 years comes out to approximately $5 million a year, according to the numbers that are in here. The 2.5 levy in Fall River for taxes is less than $2 million. So that would double that. So there's major issues here. My main concern with the Durfee right now is what are we going to do for the next several years? I think we've allowed that building to deteriorate. And yes, we need a new one, but we also have students in that building each and every day. And when that building is not being taken care of at all, now the education of those children and the adults that are in that building are going to be affected. So yes, we need a new Durfee, but we also need a plan B. And what are we going to do over the next several years? We do have to make some investments to make sure that school's safe for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Blanchette.
I myself am concerned with how we're going to pay for it. I'm a bit skeptical about bonding for it. If we're going to bond for education, I'd rather see that go to the teacher retention rate and a variety of schools instead of just focusing on one school. Is it needed? Yeah, I think at this point it is needed. Obviously, it's going to cost more to fix. I would like to see, that if it is going to be built, for it to be a bit more innovative and to increase sustainability within the school so that in the long run we may be able to save some money with it. I also think that the location maybe is not the greatest, and that could change. I know that there was some talk about that, and I would like to see that happen. If it's going to happen, I'm not sure, but I would like to. I think that where it is right now, it's a very congested area, and I see a lot of the students crossing President Avenue, and there's cars coming 50, 60 miles an hour right off the highway, and I've seen kids almost get hit there all the time, going to catch the bus, standing at the bus stop, and I do see that as a safety concern. I see a lot of car accidents almost every day, coming around the Rotary, whether they're going to BCC or Connolly or Durfee. I think it's a lot of congestion in that area, and if we could put it somewhere a little bit more remote and have those kids kind of
thank you.
Separated. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coogan.
As someone on the panel that walked around those halls for 20, 25 years, I know that we need a new Durfee High School. Structurally, it's really starting to decay. They do, in response to Mr. Aguiar's statement, they do take care of it. They're replacing roof units. They try to patch the roof. They try to paint certain areas. They try to do the best they can with a building that was poorly designed and, as Amy said, maybe poorly placed. My concern, though, is exactly like Kevin's. How are we going to bond for this, and what's Plan B if it doesn't go through? Asking the citizens to pick this up is going to be extremely difficult. I will work myself to the bone trying to convince people that this might be the way to go, but I am reluctant to think that that could pass. I think we have to look for some other alternatives. I think we may have to look for ways to do some serious cost cutting, but as far as do we need a new Durfee, yes. Are we going to get it done? I hope so, and funding will be the key issue to me. I don't think the plan is a problem at all. I think it's just going to be funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Costa.
Thank you. Great question, and absolutely we're in need of a new high school. There's no doubt about it. The high school that we have now is failing our students, and it's not providing for a learning community that's healthy. We have issues with HVAC problems. We've had problems with the roofs. It's not energy efficient. I see the budget year after year and the amount of money we're spending. It's just poorly designed. That's the reality of it. When the MSBA came in, we originally thought a rehab plan may be the best for the high school given its cost. The numbers were outstanding. They were over $100 million just in repairs. And that wasn't going to take away the other issues we were facing, and that's deteriorating. The outside of the building was deteriorating. The roof was constantly leaking. We were chasing leaks left and right. Durfee has become, unfortunately, the Humpty Dumpty of school buildings. It's fallen apart piece by piece, and we keep trying to put it back piece by piece with limited funding. The reality is that when we get our budget, we're trying to put as many dollars in our classroom, and it leaves us with very little for the upkeep and maintenance, which is costly. The program, to build, the funding mechanism to build a new school will be bonding, or it will be a tax override by the citizens, but I'm asking citizens to be open to the process. Let us be transparent with you, be a part of it, understand that this is an investment in our students, and it's a very important one. Durfee is the single high school that we have for public students, and we need to show that we're proud of our investment.
Mr. Cowan.
Yes, we need a new high school, but we got to go out and find out on grants and how much the state's going to give us for money, and maybe there's federal funding out there, because a lot of the students, we need new technology. We want the students to stay in Fall River. I remember when I came to BCC, we started off with a 286. When I got out, we were already at a Pentium. That's unheard of. Everybody said, whoa, you want these students to come back. You want the businesses to hire the students. We need state-of-the-art schools out, so high school. We don't want somebody to say, oh, you went to Durfee. Whoa, you don't have the proper training. You want the new stuff, so when they come, so we keep up to date. Look for the funding. Call the state. We get grants out there. See how much they're going to pay. There's plenty of grants out there. The federal funding, state funding. See how much it's going to cost, because they have money out there for education. The city of Fall River is entitled to it. Call up, see how much it's going to actually cost the citizens of Fall River. We can tell you it's going to cost you $10 million. When it comes down to it, it might only cost you $1 million. When they start building, you got to hold them accountable. They start building, all of a sudden they give you a bill for $30 million. They just told you it was 10. You got a contract. Oh, well, we got a contract for $10 million. Oh, well, we can't build it now. The stuff costs more, the materials. You got to hold them to what they tell you. So the citizens of Fall River don't fall back on them, they get stuck with the bill.
Thank you. Ms. Gankarski-Dunce.
Thank you. I absolutely fully support building a new Durfee High School. Whether we have to build it this year or in 10 years, no matter what, we're going to have to do it. Unfortunately, if we wait 5 or 10 years, the $260 to $330 million that it will potentially cost right now will increase. So therefore, the burden on the city will be even greater. So down the line, it might sound like a better idea to wait, but who knows what the costs are going to be at that point. I am a direct abutter to Durfee. I see it every day. I'm watching it daily as things are happening. I started teaching there in 1984, and truthfully, in 1984, we probably needed a new high school, and it was recently opened at that point. I've had students that have had to have mittens on and scarves and boots and coats. My husband used to have to wear sweatshirts and flannel shirts in the spring and in the beginning of the school year because it was so cold. The air conditioning has had tremendous problems, the roof, the leaks, the water. You can't fix something that is so broken that it's not fixable. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garvin.
I also absolutely support a new high school. I graduated from Durfee in 1990, and like Ms. Dunn said, we needed a new school then. The roof was leaking, one hallway was freezing, the next hallway would be 90 degrees. This is a community issue, whether you have students in the school or not. We're partners here, we're homeowners. This is going to affect all of us. We also need to market our school. We are losing students every year to charter schools, to Bishop Conley, to Diamond, and we need to market all the great things that Durfee has, and we're certainly slipping in that. if we don't pay for this school now, if we don't support this new school now, we'll end up paying 100% of it down the road. I think it's very important that we take this money now and build the new school that we desperately need. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hetzler.
I absolutely feel that we need a new Durfee building. Everybody I talked to who has worked there in the past 10, 15, some people 20 years, all agree that we need a new Durfee building. My wife and my mother-in-law worked in the building, and there was the heat issues, the mold issues. So we absolutely need a new Durfee, and I believe the children of Fall River need the best. So I believe the high school in the condition that it's in right now definitely needs to be improved. I'd love to see a new one built. I believe it's going to help the students, right? They go to school, it's a beautiful building, so I think that's important. It kind of will inspire them to do well. But when they go to a building now that's falling apart, I think it takes away. You know, they're not in the proper setting. That the building was designed, designs and education, 20, 30, 40 years ago. I'm not exactly sure when it was built, but at the time, and that's currently not what's best for students. So we know that now there's a better atmosphere for students. So we definitely need a new Durfee. I'm supportive of it. It will come down to the voters if they want to build a new Durfee or if they want to repair it. But I believe building a new Durfee is the best course of action. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corey.
I appeal to the community to get behind the support of a new high school. I worked in that building for 27 years and more than a dozen times went home with severe sinus issues from the mold and the dust, from the air conditioning system that's never working 100%, and the climate issues inside that school are severe. And so this is connected to teacher retention. We can't hold on to staff if the working conditions are substandard from the physical plant point of view. Also, in the design phase of this school, I'm really proud to see that right now it's open to the community and that there are meetings held in an open fashion where people can go and give their opinion on the new building. Back in the day when they designed the current building, it wasn't nearly as transparent. And they designed it with all these angles. And to secure that building is a monumental task. So kids can find themselves in corridors, in nooks and crannies. You can't find them. It's really a dangerous situation. And in today's day of real oversized security issues all over the country, it's imperative that we build a new high school that we can secure properly with a great climate that teachers would be so proud to work. And I hope the community gets behind that.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Martins.
I am highly in favor of a new Durfee High School. When the current Durfee High School was built, it was built with a concept of open classroom. That concept started in California and just waved right across the United States to the East Coast. Open classroom is a big open area, and there's a class going on in one corner, another corner, another corner, another corner, and maybe in the middle. Anything that happened in any one of those spots automatically created a problem for all the other areas in that classroom. So in order to correct that, and it was decided back then, let's put up some walls. Well, wait a minute, the windows at Durfee do not open, of which case, now, with you putting up a wall, there's no consideration for the physics of heat, of air conditioning. And as a result of that, you had, as was stated, that faculty and students were becoming ill. It's expensive, absolutely so. But the state of Massachusetts, through the School Building Assistance Program, is paying approximately 80% of it, 20% by the city of Fall River. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam Martin from FRG-TV will ask the next question, and it will be answered first by Joshua Hetzler. Pam.
I experienced a lockdown at Durfee last year. We had some 50 angry parents that were let into the lobby. They harassed verbally the security, the police officers there. So I want to know if y'all are comfortable with the current lockdown procedures. Are you comfortable with the parent notification methods? And how do you feel about the ALICE safety measures that we currently have? Thank you.
Mr. Hetzler.
Well, I've been notified notified of a number of lockdown situations. There's other security issues that I believe I've always been notified in a timely manner by the school system. So I'm happy with the notification. I think all the schools now, I believe, have an SRO, so there's always some form of security on site, no matter what level of school it is, which I think is good. I am happy with the current process, but I'd be willing to look at what other communities might be doing. If there's something better, I'd love to know about it, and then I would love to implement it here in Fall River. But I'm going to look to the specialists in that regard and make sure that we're doing the right thing for Fall River. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corey.
Yeah, I've been part of those lockdowns when I was still working, and it's tough, you know, but it's necessary. In a heightened climate of security, we have to suck it up, and we have to follow the method. I'm not an expert on lockdown methodology, but I'm willing to learn more and more about what the new current trends look like, and to work with the school board in a very progressive manner to try to adopt those trends moving forward. Having said that, I realize that being part of the lockdowns at Durfee like they were, and the uneven climate of the building, given what time of year it might be, sometimes caused some phobia issues, you know, with the people locked down inside the rooms. If the rooms were super hot or super cold, it makes it really difficult. So we have to always look at methods of improvement, and that's the way of the future. So I would support, you know, looking at it more closely and collaboratively coming to some type of solution with the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martins.
I support the lockdown procedures currently in place. If there is an outsider with a gun that's walking around the building, outside the building, then it's lockdown in place. Stay in place. Lock the doors to keep the children safe. That goes for any school. Now, if indeed you have a student that manages to smuggle a gun in, same thing, a lockdown, and get the police and the fire department in as quickly as possible to be able to ensure that there's no danger to the students. And the SROs that are in the schools, that's one person. You need more help if you have a lockdown. So I greatly support the lockdown procedures. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stone.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Martin. So yeah, similar to what the gentleman before me have said, my experiences with the lockdowns have been positive. I attended Durfee, and I'll say those situations are scary. Of course, if you don't know what's going on as a parent. I think of I have a 2-year-old who's in daycare right now, and when he was much, much younger at a daycare that wasn't here, they had to lock everything down because a little one was missing. And so we didn't know what was going on. We all, received phone calls, and of course there was hysteria. But ultimately, we have to remember that these systems are in place to keep our children and families safe, right? We live in a world that unfortunately is more dangerous than it's ever been. I work for a relationship violence prevention program. I'm sure we've all been paying attention to the news. We know what recently happened in Nevada. And these systems are in place to keep our students and families safe. I do feel that, again, I was a kid, but I feel like my parents were notified adequately. I'd be curious to hear why parents were outraged at the time and why they were so upset. So I think if you have a situation like that, then you bring those parents and families to the table and you say, hey, what happened that made you feel so frustrated about this? Was it just the nervousness of the situation? What is adequate notification for you? And really just collaborating and having that dialogue with folks that were upset about how that was handled.
Thank you. Mr. Aguiar.
So the lockdown procedures that all schools have changed a little bit. The ALICE system that you speak of is a little bit different, where it has a little more common sense to it than the traditional lockdown facility. So in ALICE, you would, for instance, be able to allow students out of the building if the active shooter or someone is on the opposite side. Administrators can communicate. So I think it's a move in the right direction, but it's also something new. So there has to be plans. You have to do drills. You have to make sure that the building is secure at all times. And to the students, to the parents, You have to trust your administrators. Your administrators are caring folks that are here to make these decisions. You have to believe what they say. When that incident happened that you referred to, the administrators were in control of the building. The superintendent at the time was taking care of it. So people are working on your behalf. So we know stress, it's a very stressful situation for parents, but it's also stressful for the administrators. But with proper training and planning, those situations are going to, be corrected. To go back to the new Durfee, a new Durfee will also help with the lockdown procedures because you're going to have up-to-date situations. The world we live in now is a lot different than in the past. So we won't have as many nooks and crannies all over the building. They'll be able to have proper cameras and everything. I think that's an important piece. And while I'm on the new school, I think it's something that needs to be addressed by the school committee and give to the public is, are we going to go for a debt exclusion for the new Durfee? We need to be honest and open with people so that we can lobby the decisions that are being made across the entire district relative to funding. According to the Durfee, the original Durfee plan, there's a debt exclusion that would be in March of 2018. That's a big issue that I think we all need to address. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Planchette.
I think there needs to be a similar regimen, such as what Bristol Community College actually has, where you get a text, a phone call, and an email, because you have to think about those parents who might not have their phone in service or whatever the case may be, at least that you know that no matter where you are, you're able to get that message and that warning so you know that your child's okay and they're safe and there is a lockdown happening. I also think that we need to do a better job of preparing our students and supporting them, particularly our elementary age students who may be differently abled, whether physically or mentally, especially those who struggle with trauma. I know myself, my son, when he was at Watson, and one of the first lockdown drills that he had done, he was traumatized. When he got home, he had said that he had to shelter in place and go hide in the closet. And at that time, he was dealing with some trauma in his personal life. And he had a nightmare that night, and it really traumatized him. So I think that we need to do a better job of preparing the students so that they know exactly what to expect, and maybe warning them, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but maybe sometime this week, as well as the parents who may have children who struggle with trauma. I think that's really, really important. I also think that we need to take stronger security measures into consideration. Parents who may not have custody of their children who could be getting into the school, that's a concern of mine as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coogan.
The lockdown drills we did at Durfee for a number of years were part of our comprehensive safety plan. That was one piece. We did fire drills. We did, obviously, code reds, or if there was a fight or a problem, so we would all respond the same. I believe what happened that exaggerated the problem was the parents were let into the building, and as Amy just said, you don't even know who these people were. Some of them, from what I found out later, didn't even have children in the school, and they're running around on the first floor yelling, "I want my students, let them out, let them out." So it turned into a thing. When there's a lockdown, I believe the police should man the gates and parents should stay out on Ellesmere Street and let the school and the administration do the work. I do believe, as Kevin was also alluding to, that the training has changed. Now, if you're on the vocational side or the auditorium side and someone's down on the first floor at the cosmetology area, they want you to leave the building. The old traditional lock in the door and sitting in the room waiting for something to happen has completely flipped. I think those concerns have to be expressed to all the parents of our students so they understand what their expectations should be if there is a lockdown. And again, through updated notification procedures, they have to know what's going on in the building, but they don't belong coming into the mix because it can only lead to more chaos. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Costa.
Thank you. Great question. And, certainly safety is an important, safety of all our students is important. And I have had the opportunity to vote on the comprehensive safety plans that are in place now, and I'm proud of them, to include the ALICE training that all of our staff receive, as well as working in conjunction with our law enforcement here in the city. Those are reviewed on an annual basis. As far as notification of parents, one of the first votes I took as a member of the school committee way back when, and I think 2007 or 8, and I believe Kevin was on the committee, was the actual funding for, at that time, was ConnectEd or Blackboard, which is the notification system we use now in order to notify parents of an event that's going on in the schools. Prior to that, we didn't have that type of notification. With the advent of cell phones, what happens sometimes is when the school is into lockdown, students are now texting their parents, and certainly as a parent, I know having a daughter who graduated from Durfee, that can be alarming. So as I believe Mr. Aguirre said, or even Mr. Coogan, I think parents need to trust the judgment and know that there are systems in place to keep your sons and daughters safe while they're in high school. It's something we do on an annual basis. Rushing to the school sometimes may be in your mind the best thing to do because you want to have contact with the school. You want your son or daughter to come out of there safely. You actually may contribute to the chaos that's going on. And that sort of adds to some of the chaos that happened in this particular instance. But we live in a different world. We've learned these lessons from Columbine and Sandy Hook, and we need to continue to study these safety plans and make sure that our students know what they are year after year.
Thank you. Mr. Cowan.
Yes, I believe what we have in place, but I think that they should, all the parents should have a Corey checked. And when you come to the school, you can say, oh, I know so-and-so, and they let you in. They should have a camera there. And you got your computer, you press in their name, and the parent's picture will come up. And you can see who they are. I could be a stranger, say, oh, so-and-so goes there. They're going to let me right in the school. We have to equip the schools. Cameras are cheap enough. You have a computer there. Have all the parents go in, take a picture. Now, if you let a student in, you say I'm so-and-so's guardian and whatever. You don't know if he's a psycho, he's going to come in and shoot up the school. If you have a picture of you're the mother or the father, now you got to, they can't get through that door. I go now, I beep in, I say I'm picking up my daughter. Nobody's there, I walk right through the school. They don't know. Once you're through the doors, you're stopped. But if we have a camera, cameras are cheap enough. You can go to Home Depot or whatever. Now they got them for $100 wireless. They go, they look at your picture, press in your name in the computer, your picture comes up. I'm so-and-so. He's been Corey checked. It's simple enough. I get Corey checked. I got been fingerprinted. First thing I tell them, they says, why do you do that? Because everyone should be Corey checked. You don't know who's going to be in there with your student. You want to be safe.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Gankarski-Dunce.
Thank you. As Mr. Coogan and Mr. Corey and myself know, the main office at Durfee is on the second floor. The only offices that are near a door were Mr. Coogan's and the vocational office. So anyone that would come into the building, they have to go up staircases and down corridors and whatnot. A new school, obviously, will prevent a lot of this from happening. What is in place right now works. Parents do need to understand that we cannot reach them unless the information we have on file is correct. Many students, when they're filling out their information, they put the number for Domino's or whatnot. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. All of that information has to be checked. If a parent changes an email address or a phone number, that needs to be kept up to date, as well as addresses. Parents need to be vigilant on their side. For lockdowns, I remember practicing, and depending on where you are in the Durfee building, some of the places aren't safe. All the configurations are different in all the classrooms, depending on if you're in an open area, a science area, a vocational area. So a student going into a new area for the first time might not be familiar with that classroom and how to lock down in place. So they need to understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gorman.
Unfortunately, this is the world that we live in now, and our kids don't know any different. I was driving down the street with my daughter on Wilson Road, and she showed me the field that they go to for their lockdown drill. I think that we need a collaboration with the police department. Unfortunately, we don't have an SRO at every school like we did before. And as a culture, we have a lack of respect for police and the authorities, and like what happened at Durfee and those people coming in, and I agree with Mr. Coogan that maybe we do need someone at the gate blocking them out. My husband's a police officer, and I can tell you that every time we go to a different school, he's looking around the building, looking where they would enter, where they could block off. So it is an important collaboration with the police department, and I do think we need to trust that they are keeping our kids safe. We're all worried about our kids, but in that moment, we need to trust them that they've done their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question will be asked by Donna Mata, FRC Media News. and it will be answered by David Cowan.
This is a two-part question in a sense. It depends where you are. Do you have children or grandchildren in the school system? If so, how can you stay objective on some of the issues facing the educational system here? And if you don't have children or grandchildren, what is your reason for running for school committee rather than, let's say, city council?
Yes, I have a daughter in the GATE program, and the teacher's unbelievable. They went to Washington last year. It's one of the, I couldn't believe we did a lot of fundraising. But certain things, my wife works for the state in Malden. So some things I would have to, I'd have to step off it. I couldn't ask questions because it's a conflict of interest, like I was already told, because she's already, that's what she does, works up there. So I can't, a lot of things I'd have to say, certain questions, I could say my input, but I couldn't vote on it because it wouldn't be right. It would be, that's like if my cousin was getting a grant or whatever, or a brother, I know to say, hey, I can say my input, you might not like it, but I can't vote on it because it's a conflict of interest, because I know where I stand with that. But I'll give 100% and say my views, because I want everyone to know my view on the question. That's what I do. But some people might not like my answer, but I'm going to give you the truth. That's anyone that knows me, I'm well outspoken, and that's my problem. I don't want the people to say, oh, if I can't do something for you.
Thank you. Ms. Kankarski-Dunst.
Thank you. My children have gone through the Fall River Public Schools. They're both adults now. My granddaughter is 3. She is not in the city. She goes to school in New Bedford. I was a teacher for many years. I've worked with a lot of programs. I've worked with teachers in the elementary, in the middle, in the high school. I've taught just about every subject there is. I worked with the alternative programs, special ed programs, vocational, and regular ed. So I've seen a lot, I've experienced a lot. I've been an advocate, I've been that person for the student. I've worked with the FREA on Teacher Matters when I was a member. I feel I'm very qualified to be on the school committee. Our littlest citizens need people to advocate for them. And I think I would be the perfect kind of person. My daughter told me today that if I wasn't the kind of teacher that I was, she would not have gone into education. And that's the first time she said that to me. And she's an autism specialist. So it makes me proud to know that she has carried on in the family tradition. And my husband was also a teacher at Durfee and retired 2 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garvin.
I do have kids in the school. I have a 7th grader, a 5th grader, and I have a almost 3-year-old that will go to Fall River Public Schools. One of my friends just asked me today how I'm handling working and kids and their activities and campaigning. And I stopped to think about it for a second, and I let her know that this is important. This is teaching my kids that you can be that voice, you can make a difference, you can be that change, and I think that that's a very important lesson to teach them. This is a passion of mine. Public education is a passion. I believe in it. I went through these schools, and I'm very proud to send my kids to school here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hetzler.
I do have children in the Fall River school system. I have 4 kids. My oldest is currently going to Diamond. She's a freshman. My oldest son is at Cuss. He's in the GATE program, as was my daughter, who's now in high school. My youngest son is in kindergarten, and I have a 3-year-old who is in preschool, who will eventually attend Fall River Public Schools. I'm in this because my children, first and foremost. Absolutely. My kids mean the world to me. But we're part of Fall River, and Fall River is my home. I was born and raised here, and I love Fall River. So The decisions I plan on making, if elected to the school committee, will be in the best interest of all the students in Fall River and for the city in general, not just for my children. So I will avoid any conflict of interest. If something comes up that may involve my children, I'll take a step back and let the other members vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corey.
Yeah, I have a 30-year career in the Fall River Public Schools, 27 years at Durfee High School. My wife has 34 years as a music educator at Cuss Middle School. I have 4 children who are fortunate enough to graduate from Durfee and go on to college. But I cut my teeth as an educator working with the more disenfranchised student. I worked with the kid who was not necessarily college-bound, and we had to think creatively to teach and develop the whole child so that they could grow and mature and find patience to hang in to their education rather than drop out. And through all of that work, I'm very, very proud to have been part of 2 programs, One Earth, One People Under the Sun, which promoted multi-ethnic and cultural diversity, and Peaceful Coalition, which took the gang problem head on, and we worked with those kids at such a high level of connectivity that we absolutely would not let them drop out of school. We developed long-term relationships, and so creatively thinking out of the box and developing programs like that really works. And I see that programs do work in our educational system here in Fall River. It's not all failure. There's a real lot of progress going on. I'm proud of the progress that I was part of, and I'm willing to continue that moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Martins.
I have been in education for 39 years. As a teacher at Diamond, the principal of Diamond, ultimately the superintendent of Diamond. I see what kids can do and what kids are struggling. When I initially ran for the school committee, I did so on the platform of students must graduate prepared to enter post-secondary education and/or graduate with some entry-level skills to be able to get a job. I argued very hard for increasing the number of career and technical programs at Durfee High School. I'm quite proud of the fact that come perhaps next year or when that new school comes around, that we are in the process of implementing 7 new career programs. In addition to having these programs, there's a lot of money involved. The Department of Education reimburses a regular ed student at a rate of about $8,000 per student. The Department of Education reimburses a vocational student at $13,000 per student. That's $5,000. If career vocational programs can be put together with liberal arts in there, that for each of these students, $5,000 per student, you get 100 students or more, that's $500,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stone.
I really love this question so much, and I'll share why. So you asked, I have kids, and so we have a 2-year-old, Marshall, at home. So he's not in the Fall River Public School systems as of now. But you asked, how do you stay objective? And I'll be honest, I think this is something that I struggle with when I hear, other candidates speak. And I mean that respectfully, but here's why. I think that there's a real issue with just the culture and how we view education in our community, right? So only parents can be invested in education. It's frankly a frightening thing to say, right? So education's just so intrinsically tied in everything we do, from our crime rates, right? So more educated communities deal with less crime. They go on they go on to have better success in college, and they do better in the workforce, and they're able to contribute to our society in a more meaningful way. And we have to think of those things when we're making decisions on a school committee, right? So I actually don't think it's a weakness to not have a child in the school system. Again, Marshall will be there, but another thing to think of is every child learns different and every family works different. I think it's so incredibly important that we're inviting all parents to the table and we're seeing all life experiences when making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aguiar.
So presently, I do not have children or grandchildren in the school system, but I hope to someday. What was my reason for running for school committee? When I first ran a very long time ago, and I had got a chance to serve for 8 years, I truly feel like I made a difference in the schools. Each and every member that's on this body in the past and in the future can make a difference, and they do make a difference to the kids. Very, very important work. I work in a school right now. I have 600 students under my control. And I really, truly, honestly believe like I have 600 children each and every day. When I worked at Fonseca School as a school adjustment counselor years ago, I had over 700 students as the only adjustment counselor in that school. Whether you have kids of your own or not, you care about those kids and you work every day to make a difference for them. So you don't really need kids in school to make decisions, but you really need to have that passion. Clearly, I feel like I have that passion, and I can't wait to get started, hopefully, in the future. Another thing I would look at is what do parents want? So if you're a parent and you're an administrator, which I am now in a school, you say, what does a parent want for their children? And I tell parents over and over, and my principal at the current school I'm at tells them the same thing. We want what's best for your kids. And him and I, we talk about all the time, what to make a decision, say, how is that going to affect kids? If any person working in schools, whether you're an administrator, teacher, a parent, anybody, said, if that was my child, what would I make that decision? If that's the litmus test that you use, you're going to be all right and you're going to make good decisions on behalf of the kids. That's what I want, and that's what I'll do if I'm elected again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Planchette.
So I have a 12-year-old son at Henry Lord School. Even though I only have one child, I actually feel like I have many. I'm in the treasurer of the Flint Neighborhood Association, and we've had a Flint youth group for the past 3 or 4 years, and they all call me Mom. And they range in ages from 11 to 18 years old. Some of them are actually here now at BCC, and I run into them consistently, and they'll send me messages, and they'll ask me for help, and you know, it's a good thing to have. While they were in my youth group, and the time that I spent with them, you know, I heard a lot of the issues and things that they were facing. Also, I just graduated from BCC in the spring of this past year, and I served as the president of the Student Senate. And my job as the president of the Student Senate is to represent every single student here. And BCC is a very, very diverse community. I was on a bunch of committees within this school. I picked the new president with a bunch of other administrators and faculty. And I served as a student representative, and I made sure that the students' voice was heard when we picked that new president, when it comes to the cost of textbooks and food security and homelessness and drug abuse and things of that nature. I always made sure that I kept every single population I could possibly think of in mind. And I had students message me every single day through Facebook, through email, through my text, calling me, stopping me in the halls, because I was that student, I was that person that they gravitated towards, and they asked for help because I helped them.
Thank you. Mr. Coogan.
Well, I never had children or grandchildren, and I was never the person I am now when I graduated from Durfee back in the 70s. But when I got involved at Durfee High School and I took these kids under my wing, I started at St. Vincent's, but when I transitioned to the high school, I got all the children I need from there. I would get 500 a year, and I loved all of these kids. You got to understand, I really went out of my way to try to make sure their experience in the school was good. I would do whatever I could for them. I cared for them like I wanted someone to care for me. And using that kind of criteria, I think that's the best way to judge your interactions with the kids. To this day, I still stop down at Youth Build. I teach a class in RPA in the morning. I was in the Argosy Charter School the other day because I want to know what's going on in our city for education for these kids. And I visit every school at least twice a year. And I love seeing the little kids because I never did much elementary work. But when you bomb around those classrooms, you really see a different style of teaching than I'm used to. I was more from the rock and roll side when they came to Durfee. So didn't get blessed with my own kids, but I had 500 a year, Donna, believe me.
Thank you. Mr. Costa.
Thank you. Well, I'm a proud father of 3 children. One is a 2016 graduate of Durfee High School. She's now in her 2nd year pre-med program in Boston. I have 2 younger children, one in 8th grade and one in 6th grade. The reason I decided to run for school committee partially was because of them. They were going to be in the schools. But I understood the importance of education and the role it played in my life. Having been first in my family to graduate from college, I understood growing up the importance of a good education and the opportunities that it gave not just me. I knew that if I could provide some guidance on the school board and take votes that always kept what was important to students at the forefront, that I could maybe make an opportunity, offer up an opportunity for them to be successful as well. I've worked in social services for 8.5 years, working now in the court system for 10. I understand the importance of the investment up front, and it's certainly cheaper of investment to educate students up front, give them opportunities to use their education to be productive in their society and hopefully stay here in this community. And I also know the cost associated with the backside of that, and that's incarceration. And it's far greater to incarcerate than it is to educate. So as long as the voters give me the opportunity to be here on this committee, I'm going to study the issue, and I'm certainly going to make the best vote that I think is in the benefit of all children in this district, not just my two that are still here.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time for another round of questions, so we will go right to our closing statements. We're sort of in an in-between time where we'd end up a little past our allotted time for tonight. So we will head right to our closing statements, and we'll do another draw for the candidate who will begin his or her 90-second statement. And the first statement will be presented by Mark Costa. Mr. Costa.
Thank you, and thank you to the panelists, and thank you, Keith, and Fall River Government TV, Bristol Community College. For almost 12 years, I've had the honor and the privilege of serving the Fall River School Committee. It's been an awesome responsibility that's been given to me by the voters since 2005. I've never taken it for granted. I sought public office because as a lifelong resident of the city, a product of Fall River Public Schools, and a father of 3, I was raised to understand the importance of education. I am proud of the fact that 2 of my children attend the public schools, as I previously mentioned. One is a graduate, the class of 2016. She is now a second-year pre-med student in Boston. That's a testament to her hard work and the commitment of all the amazing teachers that she's had while in the Fall River Public Schools. During my tenure, I've had the opportunity to serve with 6 mayors and 3 superintendents. I was fortunate enough to chair the Superintendent Search Committee that welcomed Dr. Matthew Malone to our district, and I'm excited about his tenure thus far. In those years, I've worked with my colleagues, administrators, teachers, and stakeholders to move the state's designation that we were a chronically underperforming school. I'm proud of the work that I do day in and day out, and have been. I'm asking you that on November 11th, that you return me back to the school committee, and in return, I promise you that I will continue to give you my best.
Thank you very much. David Cowan.
Yes, my name's David Cowan. I graduated from Durfee High School. I've been a resident all my life. I went in the Marine Corps. I came to BCC. My daughter is in the GATE program. My wife went to SMU, and she went to Leslie. She's got her master's from Bridgewater. And we built a house in Fall River. Education has always been the force. People don't realize. I got out of Durfee. I said, my father gave me 2 options. We were the first, me and my brother, to graduate. He worked in the mills all his life. He says, you're going to go to college or you're going in the service. My brother went in the Army. I went in the Marine Corps. And when we came back, I opened a business. And people don't realize you need education to move. You can't even get a job if you don't even have a high school diploma. So that's been the force right from the bat. Everyone in the city of Fall River should have a great education, because there's a lot of businesses out there that want the people from Fall River to come back. They'll put the money up for them to go to college if they sign a contract with them. Where I work, I've been working there 20-some years. If you're willing to stay at Gold Medal, they'll pay for your education for 5 years or whatever, long as you stay working for the company. We have a lot of companies in Fall River that want the people to stay in Fall River.
Thank you. Thank you. Susan Genkarski-Dunce.
Thank you. No matter who you are, where you live, or who you belong to, if you are a child in Fall River, you deserve the best education and foundation for your life that we can provide. Our littlest citizens deserve the best, because only then will they have what they need to flourish in their education, the job market, and in life. I became a teacher in 1984 and have dedicated my life to the children of Fall River. From planning their junior proms, coaching the Durfee cheerleaders, and being one of the founders and board members of the Fall River Youth Soccer, I taught my students life lessons in various forms. Supporting my students went beyond the classroom and extracurricular activities. It meant providing them with a listening ear, being their confidant, being an advocate, cheering them on in their achievements, and picking them up when they needed support. Now it is my turn to make a difference for all the children in Fall River, a job I feel that I am very qualified to do. Over my teaching career, I have taught in elementary, middle, and high school, as a full-time teacher and a day-to-day sub in regular ed, special ed, vocational, and the alternative programs. I have had experience and firsthand knowledge of the Fall River Public Schools, and I ask that you let me be a voice for the students and the parents and teachers on the Fall River School Committee. Please vote for me, Susan, on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Garvin.
I would like to thank FRC Media for the opportunity, and thank you to the panelists for the questions. I grew up here in Fall River in the Maplewood area. I went to Fall River Public Schools. I graduated from Durfee in 1990, and I earned a bachelor's degree in art and a master's degree in education from Simmons College in Boston. Along with my husband, we decided to raise our 3 children here in our hometown, and I'm proud to send them to Fall River Public Schools. I've had some great experiences in the schools, but I know that there's still room for improvement. I believe in the importance of parent involvement in our school system, and I believe that our public education is the foundation of our community. It can be a great equalizer in our diversity, and it is our job as parents that our children take advantage of every opportunity that our schools have to offer. This helps strengthen the school connection and builds a sense of community. I believe that we desperately need a new high school. Not only do we need a new building for a safe learning environment for our students, but we need to highlight everything that our high school has to offer. Like I said, we're losing some of our brightest students to other schools, and we need to keep them here at Durfee. I am certainly proud to be a Durfee graduate. I'm very passionate about higher education, and as someone who paid for college on their own, I want everyone to know that it is a possibility for everyone. The opportunity is out there, but it will take hard work. And I truly believe that if you want change, you need to be that change. As a mother of 3 and a partner in this city, I'm ready to do this job for my family and for yours. And I respectfully ask for one of your votes for school committee on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua Hetzler.
I want to thank everybody for having us tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm in this first and foremost because of my children. As I've said already, I have a child at every level of education here in the city: high school, middle school, elementary school, and preschool. My wife has been in education for 14 years. She's currently the adjustment counselor at Diamond. Previously, before that, she was at Durfee as the adjustment counselor, and before that, she was at St. Vincent's Home. I understand what the students, the parents, and the staff are going through. Myself, I'm a Fall River firefighter. I'm a veteran, I'm a small business owner, and I'm a homeowner here in the city. I love Fall River. I always have. I'd like to see the school system increase parent involvement. I believe that's paramount to the success of children in the city. I myself was very involved with my students. My children began in elementary school, whether it was PTO, School Improvement Council, fundraisers, basically anything I can get myself into, I did. And I was always there to help, whether it was a problem in the school where they needed a parent to start asking the tough questions and making things happen. That's what I did. I like to see them increase the number of services they provide here in the city, especially specialized services and social emotional supports. I don't like seeing the students leaving the city, traveling 20, 30 miles away to get their education. I'd like to see them get it here. I'd like to see an increase in building maintenance, and I'd also like to see teacher retention. I believe it's huge. Please consider voting for me, Joshua Hetzler, on November 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thomas Corey.
I'd like to thank you, FRC Media, and for hosting this forum tonight. This is exciting. We have a chance now to weigh in on our kids' education. If elected, I will work to ensure that all students get the education they deserve. I'm born and raised in Fall River. My wife and I are career educators in the Fall River Public Schools. My 4 children attended Fall River Public Schools through graduation, And parents should not have to worry over services for their school child. I've spent my entire professional life advocating for our city's students. Our kids are my passion. As a high school teacher and school adjustment counselor, I've been fortunate enough to have positively impacted the lives of many students through the past several years. I have a sincere concern for our kids. I'm dedicated to the greater good of all students, and I have the capacity to collaborate effectively with the school board and the community to get things done. I am proven, I am dedicated, I am sincere, and I respectfully ask the voting public for their consideration on November 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joseph Martins.
Thank you very much, and thank you for hosting this. Greatly appreciate it. I appreciate the efforts of my colleagues here on the stage. As I stated earlier, I ran for the school committee because I wanted to ensure that the students graduate with either going on to post-secondary education or have skills to get a job upon graduation. My greatest concern is in the elementary schools, school staffing. While 25 to 26 kids may be considered as an ideal class size for one teacher. However, that concept falls apart when you consider the individual students and their needs. Students learn differently and therefore require very different methods of teaching, and the teacher has to reach into his or her pedagogical bag to find some way in which to get to the students. I support inclusionary classrooms. However, when you have students that are in classrooms, inclusionary classrooms, staffing may be good with 25 to 26 students. But if you have low learning or that needs help, then you have to have additional help in that classroom. I propose that the classroom staffing be based on the needs of the students in that classroom.
Thank you. Crystal Stone.
Thank you so much to FRC Media and FRD-TV, as well as the panelists, for allowing us to do this and be here. We have to meet families where they are, right? So wherever they are in their life path, we have to meet families where they are. We can't assume that their life experiences are the same as ours, and that goes for the mom who's working 3 jobs and possibly taking a bus to get where she's going, or the parents who work at a trade desk in Boston and don't leave work until 6 p.m., right? So, we talk about parent involvement, and that's so critical, and I do agree that's, one of my platforms, and it's so important that we, address that as soon as possible. But I do believe that we have to start collaborating and asking the right questions. So we need to ask parents, how are you involved in your child's education, first and foremost, and figure out what that means for them. We need to be more better communication with our teachers, and we need to ask them, what are they doing? What do they need help with, I should say, in terms of, classroom help? So, I heard the phrase once, we need to move beyond the bake sales, and I think that just rings so true. I think of myself, and I can't, maybe attend a bake sale, but I'm really tech savvy, and I have relationships in the business community, so maybe I could, get a speaker or, do something online and different things like that. I also constantly hear the phrase, I look forward to being your voice, and I can't stress enough that the people in Fall River aren't voiceless. So when you head to the polls, I ask that you vote for me, Crystal Stone, candidate for school committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Aguiar.
I just want to give a brief shout out before I start my closing to the local delegation. The local state delegation and school funding in Fall River and across the Commonwealth is a major issue. And I want to say thank you to them for their support of education. I think that's one of the most major things that have happened. And when I look at the numbers over the last 8 years, a whopping $30 million increase in funding for the state that came down to Fall River. So I want to give a shout out to them. I want to thank Fall River Media for hosting this forum. I personally had a great time talking education today with you and the people at home. To the people of Fall River, let me say thank you for your past support of my election. Because of that support, I was able to serve for 8 years on the school committee and 5 years as a state representative. I truly appreciate it. Public service has been and always will be an integral part of my life, and I truly believe that I made a difference during my time in elected office. I worked very hard, and I got results for the people of Fall River every single day. The opportunity to serve in the past was truly some of the most rewarding work that I have ever undertaken. My experience with our education system, the legislative process, and my passion to make a difference to the children of Fall River make me uniquely qualified to serve as a member of this school committee once again. I ask and I hope that once again I can count on your support. On Election Day, I respectfully ask for one of your 6 votes. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you. Amy Blanchette.
First, I'd like to say thank you to FRC Media and FRG TV and the Herald News for being here and taking time out of your busy lives to spend time with us and speak about education. It's been fun, a little nerve-wracking, but fun. So my decision to run for school committee obviously was not an easy one, with the risk of being bashed on social media and just feeling a bit vulnerable to the public in a sense. However, I felt it was imperative that a candidate like me run for office and represent communities of everyday citizens that are not always represented. As a single parent to a 12-year-old, a student working multiple jobs with a physical disability and still struggling to get by financially, I am frustrated that I do not currently see any of this representation on any of the boards of committees in the city. This representation is important. All parents should have a voice in their child's education and feel included. You need money, lots of time, mixed with quite a bit of guts and tenacity to run for any office in the city. That's not conducive to a parent like me or many others in this city. But that doesn't mean that I don't deserve to be here any less, or that any other parent like me cannot serve on a board within this city. I truly want the best for all students, staff, and parents. Any board or cause that I am part of or have volunteered for, I have given 100% my dedication and passion. I would love to serve the city of Fall River and work for the people of Fall River to work towards a better public education system for all. And I would appreciate if you would give me one of your votes for November 7th election. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Coogan.
Well, this is great. I get to close the show. Of course, I want to thank FRC Media, and I want people out there that are watching to know how hard the people on this panel work to put their points out so that you'll understand their positions on the key issues that you guys asked us about tonight. Running for office in Fall River is a very difficult challenge, but the people here are putting themselves out, and I want you to give them a little bit of respect, whether they're running for mayor, city council, or school committee. It's very important. Now comes my plea. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 7th because I think I have a unique set of experience that have prepared me for this position on the school committee. I was fortunate to get elected last time, and I would like that to happen this time. I have experience as an administrator, 6 years on the Diamond School Committee. I started as a special ed teacher at St. Vincent's Home, and I know how schools work, and I'm comfortable moving in and out of them. I'm a hands-on school committee person. I try to attend as many events as I can. I want to be seen. I want to talk to parents. I want to get the pulse of the buildings that I visit all the time. There's plenty of work left to be done in Fall River, and I'm not kidding myself. I know that everybody on this panel understands that. If I'm fortunate enough to get elected on November 7th, it will be because of you guys that are out there watching this tonight. Thank you very much for paying attention, and I'd appreciate your vote on November 7th.
Thank you very much. I want to again thank the candidates and panelists for participating in tonight's forum. I also want to thank our FRC Media staff that has worked behind the scenes to make this a reality. Steve Rice and Michelle Dumas in our control room in our television studio, Lucy Cabral and Denise Pumaguaye here on stage, and also Sean Elliott, who is the manager of the theater here at Bristol Community College. Thank you for all your support. You can watch a replay of this forum and find out more about all the candidates running for election here in Fall River by tuning into FRC TV Channel 95 and also online at our websites, frmedia.org and frcmedianews.org. For those of you watching live, we invite you to join us this Wednesday night as we present 2 forums featuring the candidates running for Fall River City Council. Our first forum will begin at 6 p.m. with the second starting at 8 p.m. Make sure to join us on election night, November 7th, as we partner with FRG TV to provide coverage of the election results on election night. For all of us here at FRC Media, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a good night.